Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gary Knell, and the president of National Geographic, and I want to welcome you to the, I guess, the last presentation before the next presentation. So, Arizona State and GSV have done a tremendous job pushing technology and innovation, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about National Geographic and how we have rebooted our organization as a 129-year young organization and are focused now on trying to have the same goals that you all have in this audience, which is focused on impacting kids and making a big difference using this powerful yellow rectangle that all of us probably grew up with. Going back in time a little bit, the Geographic was formed in 1888, just by a little bit of background, and it was about 27 or so scientific and intellectual leaders who were gathered at the Cosmos Club in Washington. They actually were quite youthful looking, even though this painting of them showed them as quite older men. But when you look at actual photographs of the time, they looked like the local barista and other people. It was an incredible group of people, and they came out with the goal of diffusing geographic knowledge, which was a slight turn on the Smithsonian's goal, which was set up at a similar time around diffusing knowledge. So, very clever. So the focus was on geography, and the question that they tried to figure out was, how do you define geography? And this is something that Alexander Graham Bell defined as the world and all that's in it, which was a very narrow focus for chief executives as we try to deal with that. The positive side is that it's almost impossible to have mission creep in this organization. So this was Bell. He was a serial inventor at the time. The roots of National Geographic in many ways are based on this guy who was really the Steve Jobs of his era. He invented the telephone, of course, but he also came within a week of putting the first flight into air, a week following the Wright brothers, and many other things that he was involved in at the time. And his father-in-law, Gardner Green Hubbard, was the guy who signed the official document of Nat Geo, asked Bell to take over, and then his son-in-law took over after him, and a long string of leaders connected to the Grosvenor family. But it's Bell's legacy that carries on to today, and focusing on storytelling, the connection of science and storytelling and education. The first issue of the magazine came out in 1888. It was focused on the geologic strata of the Potomac River, which everyone considered a real page-turner at the time. And since then, of course, they were able to put photographs in the magazine, and Bell really pushed that agenda. He was able to create a scenario where this new concept of photography, which never had existed before, was placed into the magazine. And that was cutting edge. 2 members of the board resigned in protest because they thought it would dumb down National Geographic. So just the lesson from that is don't always listen to your board members. They were able, however, to capture the imagination, and of course, over 100 years, I'm sure many of you grew up like I did, getting this magazine as a young person. It was in everyone's library, attic, barn, everywhere else. It was Google before there was Google, and it really was the quintessential chronicle of whatever month we were in, and that's why people still to this day have stacks of National Geographic. And you can look back at the September 1962 issue and capture in many ways what the essence of what was happening at that time. As we used to promote in the magazine, it would say, tell people you read National Geographic, it defines you, which I always thought was a fantastic line that someone like Don Draper must have written back in the 1950s or early 60s. But since that time, of course, storytelling was the core. And so wasn't just text and then photography encapsulated in this amazing magazine, but television, of course, took over all of our lives, especially in the 50s and 60s. And National Geographic was able to create the great documentaries of the time. In fact, Americans in Everest, which appeared on the CBS network, had nearly 40 million viewers, if you can imagine such a thing, tuning in on a Sunday night on CBS to watch a documentary. We don't quite have those numbers today, but what we do have in terms of a single use, but what we do have is this unparalleled and unrivaled storytelling machine, which in many ways is one of the largest in the world. We reach 730 million households around the world in television, in print, in digital format, where now we have the largest Instagram following of any magazine brand in the world, and we have passed LeBron James, and we're catching up to Kim Kardashian. So, and if all of you jump on our Instagram account tonight, maybe we'll pass Kim Kardashian, so that's our goal. The channel airs in 43 languages, and National Geographic is now printing in many parts of the world with local editions. We have been able to repurpose our organization over the last 18 months into two pieces, a joint venture that we have done with 21st Century Fox, where we had a television network, and two networks actually, but now we have print, digital, and TV together, and called National Geographic Partners, which is jointly owned and operated by the two parties, and the National Geographic Society, which out of that now has really rebooted its business model so that we're not as much slaves to fundraising as many other nonprofits have to be, but we now have a fairly large endowment, over $1 billion, and a big profit share every year from the royalties of the partnership. So we're able to start every year now with $150 million or more of money that we want to invest in individuals and invest in innovators who are working around three lenses of work that we're focused on as we define human and physical geography. And those are really around the changing planet, what is happening to our physical world in terms of climate, in terms of oceans, in terms of biodiversity, wildlife and the wild spaces that they occupy, and of course the human journey, which goes all the way from paleoanthropology all the way up to Elon Musk and Mars colonization. So that human journey is something that we work on, and those three pillars is where we are now giving grants to scientists, to explorers, but now also with our newly endowed resources to photographers, to technologists, to geographers as we get more and more into GIS, and most importantly, to teachers. So what we want to do is make available to those teachers in K-12 education who are really focusing on those three lenses and provide a way to really ramp up the work that they're doing. So if a teacher in San Diego is really nailing climate change, by giving her a $30,000 grant, that is a life-changing event that the National Geographic Society now wants to step up and make a big difference and own. Because we all know that geography and understanding how the world works is something that we are slipping behind in as a country. We did a survey with the Council on Foreign Relations a couple of years ago to try to gauge global and geographic literacy among college-aged freshmen. And these were students who really lacked basic understanding about the world. Less than half of them could identify Iran, Iraq, or Israel on a map. and these are college students. 29% correctly identified the U.S. as having a larger economy than China. So it was a signal to do something more. It was a signal to really think about, again, doubling down on education. And that's why we're at this conference, and my colleagues Brooke Brunette and Kathleen Schwilly are here to try to push with partners an opportunity to harness the use of this yellow rectangle to make a big difference in promoting the cause of geography education. So there's a few reasons why this is important. The first reason is you have to know whether John Oliver is messing with you. Let's take a look.
39 states hold elections for judges, and America is virtually alone in doing this. In fact, there's only one other country on Earth that does it on this scale. And guess which? You're wrong, it's Bolivia. A country you think about so little, you haven't even realized that's not Bolivia, this is Bolivia. Actually, that's still not Bolivia, this is Bolivia. Or is it? Or is it? This game is never not going to be fun. Now,
so reason number two, and that goes on, by the way, we don't want our students to grow up to be that guy. And these are examples of questions that guides and docents have actually asked of the Canadian National Tourist Board. Which direction is north in Canada? The Grand Canyon National Park, so where are the faces of the presidents? Or from the British National Tourist Agency, is Edinburgh in Glasgow? These kinds of pathetic questions are something that we need to wrap our arms around. But more importantly, this is really around understanding how the world works and figuring out ways in which our kids, for at least two fundamental reasons, need to have a bath and an understanding as a learning tool in geography. First of all, from an economic point of view, employment opportunities come out of this. So understanding how the global economy works, understanding that these skills can be utilized in GIS learning, in commercial planning, military, government. The study and embrace of geography gives amazing tools to kids to be able to get into college and then harness those skills later on. So the other reason, of course, which may be even more important, is we are reaching a critical point in the world where we are going to have 9 billion people on the planet by the year 2050. Some 1 billion more in Africa alone in the next 33 years. So whether you are a conservative or a progressive, the reality is such that we are going to have to face the limitations of resources that we have and the innovative opportunities that we have. So how are we going to feed these people, provide energy for them, educate them, house them without burning up everything in or on the planet? And that is the fundamental question of where National Geographic wants to unleash, I think, the energy of teachers and the energy of students. So we're going to double down really on trying to embrace kids, especially in the middle school years. We have adopted what we like to call a cradle-to-cane educational connection, one which starts early on with pre-K and of course goes to folks at all ages who still engage with all of our media content. But we think that middle school students especially, who are a bit mature enough to understand and see a broader world, and also can tee them up and really whet their appetite to find a new place, and the importance of opportunities later on, as well as opportunities to understand the neighborhood they live in, the city they live in, the county, the state, the nation, and then where it fits in the world, and of course, the physical reality of what happens in geography. This is a way where we can really whet kids' appetites. We have over 2.5 million kids today who are involved in the National Geographic Bee. which is a contest, as many of you probably know, that's in thousands of middle schools today. By taking advantage of that opportunity and National Geographic's trusted brand, we're going to be able to step up a engagement with middle school teachers, with states and districts across the country, to really build a cadre of National Geographic certified educators who then can work to engage their students to take on what is really the fundamental questions facing America and facing the world ahead. We will work with our partners at National Geographic Magazine to promote, as Tim Shriver showed today, empathy, which is critically important, and social and emotional learning, which is so important in trying to grab a kid's attention. A couple examples that we've had recently: the National Geographic Magazine just won a Pulitzer mention for its work on gender diversity. Flint, Michigan, a geography story. Water does not come out of a tap. It does, but that's not where the water, it's not sitting in the tap. It's coming out of a water source where someone made a wrong choice in turning on the water connecting Detroit and Flint. And we have hundreds of those issues now across the country, according to the New York Times, facing public schools. We have recently had many conversations with lawmakers and officials in power, because we do think that National Geographic is maybe one of the few entities that's not totally caught up in the polarized political environment that we're facing right now. So we've recently had opportunities to speak to foreign service officers, to welcome the Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke to National Geographic, who's in the state today, talking about the Bears Ears National Monument, but we want to engage with him about the importance of national parks, about public lands, about the other issues that Native Americans are dealing with, as part of the heritage of National Geographic and the diffusion of geographic knowledge. We think we have a big opportunity to continue to spread what National Geographic is all about. And science and storytelling with STEM, the Hidden Figures film, which many of you saw Oscar nominated, that was promoted heavily at National Geographic through hundreds of kids, and those are the kinds of things that we can bring to the table that other people are not able to do. So when we get down to the individual, we think unleashing the power of our explorers, the power of the talent, our grantees, is a fantastic way of inspiring young people to take on science and take on this issue of helping promote saving the world. We know from all the research that millennials have a much broader view of wanting to tackle these global issues. And we think we can tap into that and are tapping into that with examples like here with our young gal who is involved in a bio-blitz down in Florida, and I think we have a clip to run.
I saw a snake, a turtle, and a newt. I let the newt crawl on my hand to my arm. When the newt went on my arm, it tickled. It was so ticklish, that's all I could say. I fell in the mud too. It was really gross. There were spiders and everything. Well, I first didn't like it, and then I loved it a lot.
So it was very liberating going through the mud.
My foot is stuck!
Okay, ready?
Just took a stick from the floor and kept on walking with it.
Imani was very fearful of anything that flew or crawled.
But now I'm not scared anymore.
Anyway, I think she's been back now to that park, as I understand it, wants to take off on a career in biology. So that's where we can connect with students. And our explorers are magical. I want to show you a clip of Yukinori Kawai, who's an archaeologist and an Egyptologist who uses computer science and 3D data, surveys and other technologies to figure out how and why the Giza pyramids were built. Take a look.
We went on Tinkercad and we built these pyramids like what Yukinori did. We had to find ways to solve problems.
It just kind of showed the best side of every kid because they all could do kind of what they wanted and show it in their own way. Some kids were drawing, some kids were doing it on the computer, some kids were researching, some kids were writing about it. And we learn about these things that have happened in the past, but we don't even still know everything about the past. So I think once they thought about that, they had all of these questions about, what do these look like? Can we see these if we go to Egypt? How big are these pyramids?
So yeah, the curiosity drove it, and we just sort of created the frame or the constraints for them to work within. The positive reinforcement that came when they presented their work to Yukinori, and they actually got a video response, a personalized video response from him. I think it was very touching for the kids because they'd made this real-world connection.
I was really excited when I saw Yukinori's video. He was like really impressed that we were like kind of helping him.
Be in the middle.
I mean, kids learning from each other is the greatest thing.
So exploring together, a critical part of what we can bring to the table. The B, as I mentioned, is coming up, and the finals are next Wednesday. You can tune in and see those, and this has turned into quite an event. Alex Trebek was our host for many years, and now Rocca, who's a good friend, and you've seen on CBS Sunday Morning and heard on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me for many years as our host today. And he's kind of a kid at heart who knows a lot about geography. So we'll have him there. And as I mentioned, we do want to expand our work with middle school teachers and through teacher certifications. And we have really begun our work now through this kind of professional recognition, working with Google Plus and others to build a community of educators who can connect with each other and share resources, working among our state alliances where National Geographic has been involved for over 30 years. So we do hope that this grand program of connecting explorers and scientists and our photographers and researchers with the teaching community can make a big difference so that we become the example of learning and creative problem solving and providing tools to young kids who can really make a difference. We think through our expeditions, through bringing teachers along on a journey with us, as we do with our Grosvenor Teacher Fellows, where we choose some 35 of them every year to go on our Lindblad Expeditions. These are science teachers who compete for this, and this is a trip of the lifetime, and they really become ambassadors for the planet. They are able to bring this excitement home, and their work is truly remarkable. So let me close with a recent experience that I had in Africa, where Meave Leakey, who is a great paleoanthropologist, gave me a little perspective. We went out fossil hunting. One of the great things of being the National Geographic president is you go fossil hunting with Meave Leakey, in northern Kenya. And I picked up this fossil, and she said, well, this is I said, what is this? She said, it's a 3 million year old hippo, put it down. So, but it did help me put politics into perspective. It certainly put the entire world into perspective, and that the fact that we are living through this tumultuous era, as we all know, where authority has been really taken down in government, in politics, in journalism, and in education and business. There are a few places where there is still a lot of respect and trust. And we think National Geographic is one of those. And we want to offer up really to the education community the toolkit of explorers and researchers and scientists and a history of photography and media that creates stories that will inspire the next generation of kids who are inheriting the earth from us to do the right thing, to help confront in creative and innovative ways this ultimate challenge of feeding and housing and providing energy for and being able to educate 9 billion or more people on planet Earth. So we're keen to work with you. We're here really for the first time at this conference to try to say that we are open for business in new ways, and we are excited about the future and working with the incredible innovation community, with partners like Cengage and with others who we will be working with in the future. And I thank you for having us. Thanks very much.